Hello and welcome everybody. Thanks so much for joining my talk about solving the indoor wireless connectivity problem with Nuglass in trains and beyond. First, I want to start with some short introductions. So my name is Nemo. I'm the Director of Implementation for Sidexis in Europe. Sidexis is the Odoo partner that helps with realizing the Nuglass Odoo project, and we'll talk a little bit more about Sidexis and our history in the future. I was also supposed to be joined today by Luc Bernier, who's the CEO of Nuglass, but unfortunately he couldn't make it here today, so that's really unfortunate. And oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I didn't put my phone on mute. Oh, this is actually Luc. Let me just grab this call real quick. Just 1 second. Hey, Luc, excuse, what? Sorry, what? What are you saying? You're trying to, I can't hear you. Can you just try one more time? Sorry, you're on a train? Oh, what is going on? Well, that was a really frustrating experience. I don't know if that's ever happened to you too in the past, but connectivity issues indoor can be really frustrating. And that's actually the problem that Nuglass has solved. So let's talk a little bit more about what that problem really looks like. So in modern buildings and transportation, like in trains, those environments are actually signal-proof to the mobile phone frequencies due to insulating glazing within the windows. So most people actually don't realize this, but between the different glass panes in your windows, in your buildings, or in your trains, there's a really thin coating of metal that helps with the insulation to keep the heat inside. However, that thin metal layer also then creates a Faraday cage and doesn't allow the mobile phone frequencies to get inside the trains or inside the buildings in this case. And this is really a problem because obviously, in addition to wanting to stay warm in buildings and in trains, we also rely in modern society on reliable and high capacity networks and an easy access to the internet. And right now, we really don't have that. And so in the past, the only solution on the market was to have a signal amplifier that would allow you to basically have an antenna and then a repeater that shares the outside signal inside a building or inside a train, for example. And the real issue with that solution is that it requires the installation of a lot of equipment. It's prone to failure and prone to obsolescence, for example, when you have new different types of mobile frequencies coming out, like 4G, 5G, et cetera. And there's also really high costs for the initial installation as well as for the annual maintenance. So Nuglass has actually solved this problem by using a grid laser scribe that actually etches a pattern into that thin metal layer between the different panes of the glass. And by treating the windows, we can actually, with those lasers, we can actually make a grid that's invisible to the modern eye, but that allows the correct frequencies through for the mobile reception on your smartphones, and therefore enables you to have 500 times better signal in a train, for example, once all the windows are treated. And what's amazing about the Nuglass technique is that it allows you to treat existing windows on site with no unmounting of the windows. It's really a turnkey solution, and it doesn't require any maintenance in the long term. And it's actually compatible with, in theory, many of the future technologies like 6G, 7G that might come out in the future. And Nuglass has really actually taken this one step further, and they've made their solution portable. And they've created these robots that they can apply onto train windows, and they can use those robots to treat both flat and curved glass with no unmounting, which means they bring their robots on site where the trains are being maintained for other regular activities, and they can actually treat the windows and make the train cars permeable to the mobile frequencies, and thereby allowing a better user experience and a better customer experience for the train participants or the people actually riding the trains. And the record time for that treatment of the windows is 20 minutes, and they do this in a very safe environment with a class 1 laser. And it's actually this methodology, this service is 10 times cheaper than installing a repeater. So now let's talk about, now that you understand what Nuglass does and the problem that they solve, let's talk a little bit about why they implemented Odoo and the history of this project. So they first started with Odoo in V16 in 2023 as a key part of their go-to-market strategy. They've been hosted on Odoo.sh, and they were originally purely an accounting implementation. So they were originally using it really just for managing their vendor bills and doing their bank sync and reconciliation in order to have up-to-date financial reports like a balance sheet and profit and loss in Odoo. And they worked with the Sodexis team on their initial accounting implementation, and then afterwards they came to us to help implement a custom workflow to help them with registering the IDs of the windows, the cars, and eventually the trains that they would treat using their proprietary technology. We have implemented a completely custom workflow in the field service app for them that allows them to track the operator work on site with quality checks, quality alerts, e-signature by their customers, and customized worksheets so they can track all the key parameters and variables throughout their process. And finally, we tie it all together in their workflow with seamless invoicing, with custom reporting that basically provides lists of all of the windows on the trains that have been treated and make sure that their customers have all the documentation they need to substantiate the invoicing step at the end of the process. And Sodexis has been really happy to accompany Nuglas on their Odoo journey since day one and help them bring this whole workflow to life and help them customize Odoo in order to meet their requirements. Now, when we consider the keys to success for this Odoo implementation with Nuglas, one of the key things that was really important for their success is that they started early. So Nuglas is definitely a startup, and they've been experiencing incredible growth over the past few years, but they decided to skip that painful Excel phase that a lot of startups go through, and instead of trying to manage part of their workflows and their on-site processes through Excel, they immediately recognized that it was going to be really important and it was going to add a lot of value to standardize the capture of the train window treatments in Odoo through the field service app. And so they decided to do that as soon as they signed their first contract with their first train operator. They decided, okay, let's implement this workflow in Odoo and capture all the data we need directly in a structured database. We've also been working with the Nuglas team really carefully to make sure that we define requirements and we implement the workflow in a phased, stepwise implementation plan. So instead of trying to cover every single use case that's possible from the first phase, instead we just asked ourselves, what do we need for the first contract? And we focused really on the first contract and building out the first workflow. And as you'll see in a few moments, we have now a roadmap for the future to help bring in new use cases and edge cases that will help them as they're expanding to other markets and other contracts with train operators outside of Switzerland. And one of the keys to success as well was the fact that Odoo's open source. So the Sodexis development team was able to customize the platform to meet not only Nuglas's requirements, but also their customers' requirements. And so the train operators themselves actually had a lot of requirements in terms of safety and security, and we were able to build those into existing tools in Odoo, like the worksheets, in order to make sure that all the important parameters and data was captured and that the work being done on the trains was being done as safely as possible. And so in conclusion, it's really that seamless integration of the field service, the sales, and the accounting apps that have allowed Nuglas to promptly and professionally invoice their customers and provide a high level of detail and security at each step in the process. In terms of the roadmap or the next steps for the Nuglas Odoo implementation, right now, actually next week, they're starting a new project where they're going to be working on unmounted window treatments with a window manufacturer. So this is a completely different workflow to the one I just mentioned. So instead of going to the trains and actually treating the windows on the trains that are already mounted, now they've developed and they've signed a contract for a partnership with a window manufacturer, and they're going to be treating the windows as one of the last steps in the manufacturing process before actually sending the windows out the door and mounting them on the trains. And so this is obviously going to allow them to have a much higher throughput in terms of the numbers of windows that they can treat, because there's a lot less logistical hurdles to jump through in terms of transporting the machines to the right sites and actually treating the windows on the trains. And so we created a separate workflow in the field service app that's much more simplified, that allows them to track bringing their robots to the manufacturing site and actually supporting the treatment process, the laser treatment process, as part of the manufacturing process. We're also working on scoping out and implementing their own manufacturing workflow for New Glass for their robots. So thankfully, they've been signing new contracts and expanding to new markets, and that means they now need more of the robots and more lasers to actually treat all of the windows that they're planning on treating in the coming year. And because of that, they need to scale up their manufacturing process and make that a little bit more standardized so that they can more efficiently create their robots. And there's a lot of parts involved, a lot of bills of materials, a lot of nested subcomponents to take into consideration. And we're helping them with basically organizing that process and implementing it at the right level for them today in Odoo. And that's what's going to be happening through the rest of this year in 2024. And then next year in 2025, we're going to tackle the automatic inventory valuation, which is another thing that they wanted on their roadmap for a little bit longer term, which is how do we track the entire inventory and at least all the valuable, important pieces, and make sure that we know what our inventory valuation is from 1 month to the next. Right now, they just do an annual count for their financial reporting, and they don't have the up-to-date information. So we're working with them to start organizing better product categories, and then we're going to set up that automated inventory valuation next year. And then, unfortunately, Luke really couldn't make it today, pretty much last minute. So I've included in this slide a short testimonial from him directly. And really, his conclusion is that Odoo is an easy and affordable ERP system. Everyone, regardless of scale, should use Odoo ERP due to its simplicity and user-friendly design. Odoo is almost unlimited. When we hit the limit at New Glass, we broke it thanks to Sodexo's customizations to fit our exact needs. And so you can see here, we've really worked closely with Luke in the Sodexo's team on making sure we meet strict deadlines, even within a few weeks, rolling out new improvements. And we really helped with understanding their process and their needs, and excuse me, and getting everything done within the predefined budget. Great, and so in conclusion, a few more words about Sodexo. So Sodexo is an Odoo partner since 2012. We're 100% specialized in only Odoo. We're headquartered in the US, but we have a presence across Europe as well. And we can really help you at any step in the process that you might be in your Odoo implementation. Thank you. Some water would be great. Thanks. Yeah. And so, yeah, anywhere you are in your Odoo implementation, if you need help, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And that's it. So I'll take some questions now, if you have any.
What was the most challenging part of the field service implementation?
That's a good question. So I think the most challenging part of the implementation was just understanding all the requirements and the entire workflow from the beginning and making sure that we only customized when really necessary. So it's important to realize that New Glass, this was their first field service operations. They didn't have any ERP tool before Odoo. So we had to ask ourselves at every step in the process, does it actually really make sense to customize these things, or should we change the ways of working before they even get started with the field service on-site operations? So having that right balancing act between customization and adapting the workflows to the Odoo base is what took a lot of time in the analysis phase.
Okay, thank you for the answer. We have a second question here. How long did it take to implement?
I think the initial phase 1 implementation in the beginning of 2023, we were speaking with Luke starting in January. We signed a contract in February, and then we had the workflow live for them that summer in July.
Okay, well, thank you. At the moment, we only have these 2 questions, so we can wait a few minutes or just stop in here. So to you.
Sounds great.
Yeah,
Thanks so
sounds
much.
great. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.